Welcome to Black Woman Leading the Podcast. I'm Laura Knight, your host and the founder of BlackWomanLeading.com. Today we're talking about reclaiming connection and purpose with Dr. Cree Scott. If you've been thinking about how you can create more connection as you lead in these disruptive times, if you want to cultivate more inner alignment as you move forward on your career journey, or if you want to make more clear connections between your work life and your well-being, then you need to keep listening. Let's get into it. This podcast amplifies the needs and experiences of Black women leaders in the workplace with a holistic focus on three core areas: leadership development, mental wellness, and relationship management. Our ultimate aim is to help Black women learn, heal, and grow in their leadership capacity. Get ready, sis. The Black Woman Leading Live Conference and Retreat is back for our 4th annual event. And this year, we're leveling up. In 2026, we're developing future-ready leaders. Leaders prepared to rise, adapt, and thrive in a world that's changing every single day. Designed by Black women for Black women, this is a one-of-a-kind professional development experience. You'll go deep into the heart work and the head work, the alignment, strategy, clarity, and confidence you need to boldly walk into your next level. This year, we're spotlighting the skills and mindsets that define future-ready leadership, navigating disruption, leading through change, anticipating opportunity, and adapting with resilience and vision. Whether you're an emerging, mid-career, or senior leader, this space was created with you in mind. True to our cultural roots, we learn in community, across generations, across experiences, and across our shared brilliance. You'll be surrounded by Black women leaders, coaches, and experts, including direct learning from yours truly as the creator of the Black Women Leading programs and podcasts. If you are ready for transformation, if you are ready to expand your leadership and your wellness, if you're ready to prepare not only for what's now, but what's next, then you belong here. Join us at Black Woman Leading Live, May 11th through the 14th in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Save your seat at www.bwlretreat.com. Your future-ready leadership journey starts today. Hey everybody, today we're talking about reclaiming connection and purpose with Dr. Cree Scott. Welcome, Dr. Cree.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you. I'm excited to get into this topic because this is a topic that is kind of near and dear to my heart as well. But first, let me give you the official about Dr. Cree. Dr. Cree Scott is the founder and CEO of Serenity Psy Consulting, where she brings the science of human behavior into the boardroom. As a workplace performance expert, she's worked across industries and sectors, turning complex psychological concepts into practical strategies that transform how leaders lead. Now, what makes her approach different? She uncovers the blind spots and self-limiting beliefs that even the most successful leaders don't know that they have. She's the author of The Missing Piece in Leadership, which reveals the overlooked ingredients that turn leadership from exhausting to energizing. So whether you're leading a team of 5 or 5,000, her approach will challenge how you think about leadership, performance, and what it really takes to inspire yourself and others to do their best work. So I referenced her book in the bio, The Missing Piece. We have the links in the show notes. Y'all have to get this book. But this was really the inspiration for today, her book and just your expertise, Dr. Cree. But wait. I'm getting ahead of myself. How did we meet? I feel like it's been like 3 years.
It's been a little over 3 years. You were one of the first people that I spoke to when I started my business. So,
wow.
And I've been in business since 2022.
So we connected on LinkedIn. So there is some beautiful things about LinkedIn. We connected on LinkedIn, did an intro call. And since then have just kind of been following each other's journeys and checking in here and there. So excited. This is our actual first time meeting each other too, after 3 years. Like I feel like we met and went to dinner a few times.
Yes, I know. That's how it feels, but I'm gracious for that because sometimes you meet people on LinkedIn and you're not sure what you're going to get.
Exactly. So. Okay, so excited. So we met on LinkedIn. And what I think was really interesting, you being a psychologist and in this kind of workplace consulting, leadership development, is a similar experience that I've had of coming from a licensed clinical social worker. And so at first I was just like, okay, she different like me.
Yes.
But it brings a unique lens to the work. And that's what we're going to get into with this missing piece today. But I wanted to talk about this concept of reclaiming connection because, you know, as you talk about in the book, we're like, it's so much disruption happening, period. I mean, I don't care what level you want to think about, federal, local, state, industry wise. And people are becoming burnt out. They are further isolated, even despite all of this activity. And we know that connection piece is critical to well-being, but it's critical to performance and stuff too. And so I wanted to get into and tap into your expertise on this. So excited to get into it. But before we jump into this, before we jump into our content, I always like to ask all of our guests, what does the phrase Black woman leading mean to you? And tell us a little bit about this journey as a real Black woman leading to this work that you're doing now.
Yes. So Black woman leading to me means me being able to show up, or any Black woman being able to show up in a space where we're accepted and we're able to show our full authentic selves without having to always fully assimilate into a culture, but being really bringing in those characteristics that they value and many times have been told that we should be different, but really being able to bring our full selves and be accepted for who that is and for who we are. So for me, I think that's been a really long journey, because when I first started in psychology and then moving over from psychology to corporate, it was something that I had to really learn what that culture was. Because as a psychologist, you can kind of do what you want to do. You're licensed, you've gotten to that space and people respect you already. But going into corporate, you're kind of starting maybe in the middle. I came in as a manager, but the idea was really trying to figure out, like, how can I come into this culture and still be who I am? And that was a really big learning curve for me. Like, it took me probably 4 or 5 years to figure it out and still be able to offer the value that I needed to offer without compromising who I am.
I mean, and you got to give us a little bit about this trajectory as a psychologist. Then you come in as a manager. Now you're doing this consulting in corporations. Like, what was that journey? What led you there? Like, I'm so intrigued about this.
Yes. So it's funny because when I got my doctorate, I was just like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I thought for sure that clinical psychology was where I was going to stay. I started off as a forensic psychologist. It was so much fun. I had always wanted to be like, Silence of the Lambs.
CFI.
Yes, all the things. So I got to talk to, people who were being identified as someone who had committed a crime. And I got to do all these things in terms of competency to stand trial, insanity evaluation.
Like on the TV shows.
Like on the TV shows, yes. And so it was really exciting. But as I was kind of getting further into my career and I was moving from Arizona at the time, that's where my husband was, and we moved to the DC area, I was finding it a little challenging to find work in that space that was outside of like the state hospitals.
I see.
And I knew that I didn't want to go to work for the state. And so I decided to do some work with the Department of Defense. And really that's where the trajectory of consulting came in. So I was the chief psychologist for an intensive outpatient unit for the military, and I was doing medical board evaluation. So whenever someone was coming in and needed to be placed on limited duty, or they needed to be discharged due to a medical or a mental health disability, then I would do their medical boards. But we also had to have a program in place because that process takes six months to a year. And so we couldn't just have them sitting around, and they were no longer, doing things with their commanding unit. So I did that. Very, very great work. I love that work. But unfortunately, about 2 years in, one of the service members accidentally overdosed. And I just remember thinking, like, this is a lot for me. I don't think I had ever had a client. Well, I know I had never had a client up until that point that I lost. And so I was like, I think I need to do something a little different. So I decided to take a break from clinical work And at the time, I was really close with the mental health director at the hospital, and she was being transferred to the Bureau of Medicine and Surgery. And so she brought me in through this small little consulting firm to do program evaluation. So that was my first introduction to consulting. And I had no idea that I could be a consultant.
Yeah.
I was just like,
this was an option.
that this was an option. We've always been trained as a psychologist that you're going to do these 4 or 5 things, and that'll be it. So I did program evaluation, and we help people with their statement of work. We helped them kind of get the grants and the grant money that they were looking for. So it was really like rewarding. And then I would probably say about 8 months into that, I was approached by one of my old colleagues who had just started working at Booz Allen Hamilton. And she was like, oh my gosh, we're looking for new psychologists who are licensed and also have a background with the Department of Defense to come into unique, right? I was like a unicorn. They were like, we're looking for those people because we just won this huge contract. And so I said, okay, but I don't have any consulting experience outside of this, program evaluation. And she said, I don't really think that matters right now because we need people. And as long as you have the subject matter expertise, we can teach the rest. Okay. And so that was my first experience going into consulting. And I will tell you that it was a huge learning curve. Like what we do in clinical and the way that we do things, in that setting is very different than how we do things in consulting. Yeah. So I had to learn, and there were a lot of transferable skills, but I had to learn an entirely different way of being. So
yeah, it's a lot that resonates with me about your story and my trajectory. I come from social work, but before that I was in corporate, but as a really young professional. Okay. And then I went back to school, but I was working with child and adolescents experiencing trauma. And it was the same thing. I actually lost 2 of my young people to community violence. Went to the funerals, airbrushed T-shirts, everything. And I was like, you know what? On top of severe physical, sexual abuse, all that. And it was just like, for the long term, I don't know. Right. I don't know.
That's how I felt.
Yeah, I don't know. Love to support the community and still volunteered in ways to support those communities. But that day-to-day, hearing it day in and day out, shout out to my clinicians that are serving. But I was there, yeah. And that then led me on going back into organizations, and here we are, right? Yes. So this is interesting, though. As a clinical psychologist working in this leadership development, you're doing a lot with team alignment and stuff too. What do you see that traditional business consultants miss? And I want to make this as a possibility model, because I feel like sometimes, especially in this season, when we're looking at the numbers of Black women leaving the workforce, either forced out, layoff, or deciding to do something else, sometimes people cannot see the transferable shift, or they view themselves from a very narrow lens instead of seeing, wow, maybe I can bring something different to another space that is not used to my profile. So I think you are a great case for that. But what do you see different, being in these corporations, doing the consultants with the clinical psychologist glasses on that a lot of other consultants miss?
Yes, so that is something that I feel like has gotten me the furthest in terms of being able to be a senior manager at Deloitte when I finally, got up to that level. And I think that part of it is because what I bring to the conversation and to the experience is an ability to watch the people in the room and to listen to what's said and to listen to what's not said, to watch body language, to interpret information for people. And so it's really interesting because just because you're a psychologist doesn't mean that you have emotional intelligence. Right. We'll say, I know a lot of psychologists that are lacking, or clinicians that are lacking emotional intelligence. Yeah. However, I do think that was one of the things that I really was able to lean into. And we know that emotional intelligence takes you a lot further sometimes than just IQ. Yeah. And so I always kind of help everyone in the room bring together all of this complex data and all of the information that they're talking about and distill it down into simpler terms and ways in which people could receive it. And that's the thing, is I could pivot pretty quickly when I was starting to recognize what the underlying issue
Yes.
was. And I could see it much faster, I think, than other people could. So I could help my team and so forth understand the client a lot better.
Yeah.
And I was able to really go in and understand how to influence pretty quickly, based on our psychological, frameworks and things of that sort. I was able to get in and build those relationships because I understood that at the end of the day, connection was the most important thing in all of this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about selling more or doing better things and so forth, but it was really about just being human and allowing other people to come into a space and hold their space in a way that they felt authentic as well.
Yeah.
So,
Because, I mean, when you think about business concepts of marketing, of sales, at the core, it's really emotional resonance,
Yes.
right? If you can emotionally resonate with someone, you can get them to say yes. Because we're often, we look at price point, we look at that, but that's not usually what's driving people to make a decision to purchase something.
Correct.
It's a deeper emotional level, and so you're like, I got that part.
yes.
I
had
can
that.
read in between the lines for that part. Okay, this is good. So let's get into this book, The Missing Piece. And you all, look, peace is Peace. I like what you did there. I see what you did there. So the book is called The Missing Piece in Leadership. What inspired you to write it, and what is the missing piece that you believe today's leaders are overlooking?
So I have been wanting to write a book forever. When I decided to go into business, it was something that I said I would do and then never really got around to doing. But as I started doing more executive coaching, I was really seeing people, number one, leaders are very lonely.
Very lonely.
They were having a really hard time concentrating and paying attention to the things that were most important, where they would pay attention to all the things instead of like being able to refocus and claim their attention. I would get leaders who couldn't tell me what made them happy in life. They had kind of lost touch with that. I would get leaders who were telling me that they didn't feel connected to what they were doing anymore. What's the point? Why am I doing this?
Wow.
And then I started to think like, where can I step in, just based on my knowledge of corporate America, and I know that all the things that it does to you sometimes as you're in it for 10, 20, 30 years, and where can I bring the psychological aspect of that into the conversation where it doesn't feel so esoteric, but something that's very practical for people to be able to use. And so it made me think about ways to really uncover some simplistic things that people can do to start to think more about being in tune to their own frequency and the frequencies around them.
Yeah.
And I really have seen, like, especially in the last 2 years, probably even before then, but the last 2 years for sure, a big space of disconnection. Because of technology, whether it's AI, but even social media.
Social media, for sure.
And then just having the different ways in which we're engaging with people, especially in the workplace. Like sometimes people have Teams, Slack, and everything else, other ways, all these different ways of like getting information. And so our brain has become very overloaded. Yeah. And so you're trying to pay attention to all the things and you're not able to pay attention to the thing.
Yeah.
And so that disconnection, I think, is really driving us to be distracted, which leads us also to not be in a space where we can make logical, rational, coherent decisions.
Yeah.
And it makes us less impactful. And so you'll see people trying to communicate with one another and just missing the whole point.
Missing it, like speaking two separate languages. Yeah. So the missing piece is connection to self and to others.
That's right. And to the greater ecosystem.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about this connection to self, others, the greater ecosystem, as you said. Why you started to talk about it a little bit, but as you work with leaders, all across the country, all across the world, why is that connection so critical in leadership? Like, what is the cost if we don't have the connection?
Absolutely. So connection is something that, all humans need. And you think about Maslow's hierarchy, like that sense of belonging and feeling like you're a part of something is just something that we all need. And it starts with ourselves. And, I think that a lot of times we think about this in ways of how we connect with other people. And that's also definitely a
Yeah.
part of it. But we play such a big part in not just, other people's lives, but in the lives of ourselves and the stories that we tell ourselves, how we think about things, and all of the self-limiting beliefs that we end up having
Yeah.
where we don't go and do certain things or make certain decisions. But then the biggest piece is that we're a part of a broader ecosystem that we never pay attention to. We're kind of like very focused in this one little lane, and there's all this other space that we're not playing in. So I think that when I think about connection, it's conscious connection, and it's really being aware and again in tune to that frequency of who I am and what I'm bringing to the table, how I engage with other people, how I'm being intentional about showing up in my interactions with others, and how I impact that
Yeah.
relationship, but also like what role am I playing in the larger ecosystem of the space that I'm in, because there is a broader thing that many times we don't necessarily pay attention to. And so if you can do that consciously and intentionally, you'll find that you have higher performance. You'll find that you have better ability to get clarity. You'll find a space where there's more peace.
Yeah.
And there doesn't feel like this unease that most people, when I'm talking to them in executive coaching, talk to me a lot about that unease. So the peace that comes with that consciousness and that connection in those three areas really helps you to gain what you're looking for when it comes to performance and so forth. I talk about performance because that's what people want to hear when it comes to corporate, but really at the human level, we want peace.
Yeah, it's like, what's the saying? Sell them what they want, give them what they need.
Exactly.
So to put some frame to it, because somebody is listening and they're like, okay, I'm following, but what does this look like? So let's think about connection with self. We call that heart work in Black Woman Leading Land. Give us both sides of the coin. What could disconnection with self look like in my tangible behaviors experience? Well, then what could connection with self look like? Just to, if someone's listening and they don't have a clear picture, just to put some frame to that for them.
Yeah, so it's funny because I can break it down to the three areas that I talk about. So self-awareness. So what it looks like to be connected to self is having self-awareness and self-understanding and self-worth.
Okay.
Now, I will tell you that many times when I talk to leaders, they're always just like, I'm self-aware.
Of course.
What do you
Everybody
mean?
thinks they're self-aware.
But actually, research shows that only 10 to 15% of us are self-aware.
That's crazy.
That's it. Like, that's
crazy.
10 to 15%.
We all clueless around here.
So we're walking around thinking we're so self-aware, and we end up really not being as self-aware as we think we are, which is fine. I mean, this is not to shame anyone.
Yeah.
So when you are self-aware, when you do have self-understanding, and when you know your worth, then what it looks like in real life is that you are able to pivot when you see that things are not necessarily serving your best interest. You understand the reason why you react a certain way to certain things. You're able to get in front of things that might trigger you so that you can prepare better in those situations. You're able to know when it's time to walk away. Even though, that it may not necessarily sound good or look good on paper, you still know like this is not for me. Yeah. You're able to really understand how you fit into the environment that you're in and still show up in a way that makes you feel good. You also, I think just generally speaking, if I talk about, my own experiences, I think you also tend to really sit down, slow down, and discern what's happening. So you're paying better attention. So you may not always be speaking or doing something, but you're also okay with sitting with yourself and not being afraid to just be in that space by yourself.
And noticing.
And so forth. When you're not connected, I will tell you that what it looks like to me is busyness and not being as productive as we want to be. We get stuck. We start to allow other people's narratives to run our lives. We allow other people's decision making to impact us when we don't necessarily have to. We stop critically thinking about things, and we truly just lose contact with what makes us happy, what we value, and we don't necessarily always take that moment to rest and recover because we're not paying attention to what our bodies are telling us. So we're in that constant go, 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 go. And we tell ourselves these wild, crazy stories, and we never check the stories to make sure they're accurate and that they're helpful to what we're trying to do.
Man, we're just like robots. Now I'm looking like, am I in the 10%, Lord? Like, where am I at? Right? Am I in the 90? That's completely unaware.
Absolutely, but you are not in the 10 or 15%.
But no, this is powerful, though, because I feel like when you start to put frame to it, right? And we talk about like not having boundaries and not, this is a wake up call to us. Cause I mean, I just think about the conversations we have in Black Woman Leading. A lot of the disconnect that draw people to our community, to get support, to get community, are all of these things that you're talking about, right? But there's this moment of awareness that's saying, I need some help.
Yes.
I need something different, right? I need to shift. What I'm doing is not working. So, all right, y'all. Now we might have to go on to the prayer corner as we are reflecting. But okay, let's talk about well-being though, because you do quite a bit of work with well-being. What do you wish that leaders kind of knew or understood about well-being and its impact on performance? Because I'll say this, being a colleague, right, that does this work in well-being, I see that there is a more progressive shift now, doing this work for over 20 years, that before well-being was like,
yes,
the little soft, smushy stuff. I do see more organizations wanting to amplify that. Some of them is because we want the people to be able to work, to be quite honest. It's not about people's humanity.
Right.
But there are some organizations that are about people's humanity and like, these are human beings, right? And if they're well, then we can do our thing. So I do think we're evolving in that way. We have a lot of work to do. But what do you wish? When you talk about some of those connections that leaders knew about well-being?
So I wish that all leaders knew that well-being is the foundation of high performance. So if I'm coming into a workspace, if I do not have the ability to approach that work with my full mind, body, and all of the things that make up well-being, then I can't perform for you.
Yeah.
And so if you, I mean, most organizations care about the bottom line.
Yeah.
And so if you truly care about the bottom line and your people are the ones who are helping you get there, then they need to be well.
Yeah.
And well-being is not, I think many times what organizations do when it comes to well-being is they'll throw something at it, like an initiative, or they'll do well-being, well-being month.
Chair massages in the lunchroom.
Exactly. They do these things, right? And what I wish they understood is that to be a well-being intelligent leader, that it is a part of how you actually do the work. It's not a thing that happens outside of the work hours. It's not a thing that you do at lunchtime. It's a way of working.
An integration.
It's an integration. Yeah. And that's what I really wish that all leaders would really, think about, but also value.
Yeah.
I think that there is a misnomer when it comes to well-being means that you're not working or that you're not performing.
Yeah, you're just sleeping and relaxing.
You're just goofing off, or you're being lazy. There's a lot of things that come with it, or it means something that they've made up in their minds, and so it becomes very hard sometimes, as a psychologist, to talk about well-being without it feeling like it's a little program that we bring in.
Yeah. a side thing that we do for this month, and then it goes away. Yeah.
Yes.
So it needs to be integrated to reach your business goals.
Correct.
Is what we're looking for here.
That's right.
Okay. Now let's turn this specifically to Black women, who is our audience for this podcast. I want to go back to that internal dimension, right? The connection to me, as we talked about, because a common thing that we hear in Black Women Leading is the boundaries thing. The centering myself in these spaces that maybe are not values aligned or don't value me as much, right? And it's not just about my disconnection. There's some systemic things going on. We can think about racism, we can think about bias, we can think about all kinds of things. So as we think about in your book, you frame it as like connection to me. Is there any additional nuance that you feel like that connection to be connected to self requires of us, or as Black women, or supports we need as Black women, given some of this additional context that we have to deal with?
Absolutely. I think specifically when it comes to Black women, the biggest thing is that we carry a lot.
Yeah.
We tend to carry more than some of our counterparts do, and we're treated as if we're sometimes dispensable, if you will. And there are a lot of things that we're carrying that impacts our ability to show up as the full version of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I think as Black women specifically, we have to be a little bit more discerning about when we show up and how we show up. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure, just like my mom told me, your mom probably said something similar in terms of you have to be better than
work twice as
hard, all those things. So we have these mantras in our head, and we are holding ourselves to these very high standards that you can see that our counterparts don't do or have to do sometimes. Yes. And so one of the things that I've been working with when I talk directly to Black women is to get in touch with your softer side. And the reason why is because we're used to saying, oh, I'm resilient, I'm strong, I'm superwoman, I can do all these things.
Black
we have
girl
all
magic.
These mantras. Yeah, all these mantras. And we end up burning out first.
Yes.
Because everything is kind of given to us, number one, because we make it look easy.
Yep.
But number two, because I think many times we don't know that our capacity, that we're over capacity. We've never been really taught how to relax and to unwind without feeling lazy or guilty.
The rest aspect.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I think that what I always try to think about from that perspective is, how do I ask for help? How do you get people into a space where you've never really had to ask for help, because that's not what we're taught to do. We're taught to figure it out, to do it, to all those things, to now getting into that space of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I think it's harder for us because we want to be validated. We're trying to be in a space that sometimes doesn't always accept us. And yet we need the supports that our counterparts get, and sometimes in different ways, but we need to also be able to learn how to ask for that.
Yeah.
And educate the people around us in terms of what we need and how we're going to be successful. And our success, I think, really comes down to community.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. That community is
it
critical.
Comes down to community.
The isolation of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the community piece is critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the connection comes
Yep.
in. If we bring it all the way back to the whole point of connection, is as Black women, I think, and one of the things that I do say a lot to the Black women that I do coach, and men, is that sometimes the people in your community may or may not look like you. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Like, if you have true advocates and allies that can pull you up and bring you into a space where you need to be, that's perfectly okay. Because, again, we have to give everyone an opportunity to rest and to recover and to pass the baton, when we're like, okay, I've had enough. But knowing your capacity, that's the part of the self-awareness that I don't think that we do a great job of.
Yep.
And then we end up, burning out, or we get to that space where we're just like, I can't do it anymore. Yeah. But there were so many other points that your body and your brain was telling you that you were just like, no, but I heard from, that I need to be this way, right? Yeah. And you're hearing all these stories, but what's your story?
Yeah. And I think what's so critical, we really try to push in Black Woman Leading, is really taking the time to pause and connect with your physical body, mm-hmm. right? Because it's a lot of times, that consistent tension headache or that nausea in the stomach may not be anything biological. It's your body screaming out like, sis, slow down, rest, please, right?
Do something.
Do something different, do something different. Okay, this is good. I have I got two more questions, and then we could talk about this all day, and then I do want to ask you about our some of our core questions for the season. But we've talked a lot about connection to self, right? I do want to talk about this larger ecosystem mm-hmm. that you've referenced a few times, right? Can you talk a little bit more about the leader's role, and what does it look like to be connected to that larger ecosystem?
Yes. So part of the ecosystem is there's three different things that I talk about in that section of the book. And so the first one is 100% understanding that there is collective wisdom out there. And it may be in a book, but it's also through conversations with people.
Right.
And so many times we will try to invent something that's already been invented because we won't take the time to read and research and know that it's there. So it's really about how do you utilize the collective wisdom that's there to make better decisions and to do the things that you need to do. And how do you make space for that? So it's that continuous learning and growth. I've heard people say like, oh, I don't have time to read, or I don't have time to do that. And I'm just like, you have nothing but time. So you should always make time to do those things. The other part is really understanding perspective. Right. So many times, like I said, we're very tunnel vision, not on purpose, but that's just what's here. And so we see this and we forget to zoom out to see the rest of what's around. So I talk a lot about perspective because I do believe that if we had more of that, we would have better connections. And it's hard. It's something that you have to be intentional about, and you have to check yourself before you actually decide that you've come to this conclusion. So we're not going to take, I'm not asking people to take years or days or anything like that trying to gain perspective. But if you can do certain practices to start to broaden your perspective, similar to what you were talking about before, is like, how do you translate certain things into who you are and what you can do? That's perspective. It's being able to think about things in a broader range than just this tunnel vision. And then the last one is purpose and meaning. So this is really around not just about like what my purpose is, as part of the larger ecosystem, but what's my place in bringing my purpose to the larger ecosystem. I truly believe that we all were put here because we play a role in the ecosystem. And when we're living that out, it actually creates a better environment. Instead of when we're kind of doing something that doesn't really bring out the best in ourselves, then we're just kind of losing, for ourselves, we're losing out on what could be a much better experience.
To bring that full contribution. I love it. Okay. So we've talked a lot about kind of understanding the concept. This last one I'll ask you, then we'll transition to just a few of our season's themes questions. But what are small, accessible practices that leaders can start using today to restore connection, either with themselves or others? What would you recommend? Somebody's listening, they're like, ooh, I feel disconnected. What can they do practically?
Yes. So the first thing I'm going to say is to slow down. It is counterintuitive to every single thing that you want to do, but it is truly to go slower. Like, you can't be connected while you're moving fast. And so that might be just, taking the time to, instead of doing 3 things in an hour, to just do 1. And I get it. Like, I do recognize that we have deadlines and all of these things. They are real. But when you start to go slow, you start to see things that you would have normally missed. And you will find that when you go slower, it allows you to truly connect and be present. Because most of the time we are either thinking about something we did in the past, whether it's, something that we're excited about or sad about, or we are in the future thinking about what we need to do next. But to be present in the moment, it takes a lot of brain power. And everybody will tell you, I'm present, but most of the time you're just not. And so going slower and really being in the moment and being able to pay attention to your surroundings is going to be very important in trying to get to that place of connection to self, to others. And the larger ecosystem takes a little bit more time, but that connection to self and others, the only way you're going to get there is to go slow. But you'll have greater impact. So I get 100% that people are just like, wait a minute, I'm not trying to. I
got things to do. I got things to do.
Right. But if one of the things that we always say, if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. And if you continue to go at this pace, is it sustainable? And so that's my number one thing. There are so many so many other things that I think about especially when it comes to connection to others. I am of the mindset that we should always be curating our connections, that our connections should not just be because of proximity, which is what usually happens.
Yeah.
And that as you're curating your connections, it's always about like, what are your goals and outcomes to the people that is surrounding.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about what you can get out of them, but what can you pour into them as well. And so if you're not really thinking about your 5 people that you interact with on a normal basis or a regular basis, and you're not being intentional about how you're spending your time, then how can you possibly reach the goals and elevate to that next level? If you're staying around the same people that is at this level, it's going to be really challenging for you to do so.
Yeah.
And then I also talk about just, when you think about the network that you have, is it helpful or is it harmful to you? And I tell people to think about this from, a relationship basis personally, but professionally, it's really about, if you're trying to be promoted to some other role or you're trying to get something done with another part of the organization, what relationships do you have and how have you poured into those? What sponsors do you have?
Yeah.
What mentors do you have? Who are you talking to? What visibility do you have? What access do you have? And how are you getting there?
Yeah.
So those are all the things that I think about when it comes to connection to others. And of course, this takes you having to kind of map that out. But many times what we do is just we do it based on proximity.
Yeah.
We truly do. Like, most of our connections are based on the circumstances that we find ourselves in.
Convenience.
And convenience.
So we might have to stretch beyond that a little bit.
Yes.
In assessing what insight, wisdom, visibility do I need to have the experience that I want to have.
Absolutely.
Yep. Good stuff. Okay, before we transition, I do want to ask you one or two of our season's theme questions. Is there any final points you would like to say just on this topic of reclaiming connection?
I think just generally speaking that we think about connection as this squishy thing. And I would love for people to start thinking about that conscious, intentional connection as something that will provide them with not just peace, but also the outcomes. There are tangible outcomes that come with it. And so my hope is that we can all get that place of connection, even if it's just not to be lonely anymore. But also just knowing that where we are in our world today, we truly need connection because I feel like we're moving away from humanity and having that connection and remembering that is always important is what's going to get us to the next space that we're trying to get to. So my hope is that people can really lean into it.
I love it. And it's so consistent, right? When we talk about connection, increasing peace, it's so consistent with our season theme of leaning into joy, right? And really want to amplify this as an active exercise, not just something that happens to us, right? And so, as you think about your leadership journey, your personal leadership journey, what role has joy or even creative fulfillment played in how you lead and make decisions?
Yeah, so I would say it's a different answer than what it was when I was in corporate. But I don't think that the word joy even came into my brain outside of like hearing it in gospel songs or songs and things like that. Joy wasn't. It was
compartmentalized. It wasn't to this part of my life, right?
But it wasn't even really used in our household. Like that word joy is something that I have had to understand and study to understand. Like, oh, am I supposed to feel this, or is this something I see on television? So I think in general, like I've had to learn what that means in the first place because I've always thought it was for other people or like I said, something for TV. But as I started to really uncover what that meant to me, it was freedom. It was, and this is actually why I love corporate America, to feel more joy more times throughout my life. And so for me in my current business, it is to do the things that bring me a sense of peace and ease. It's going towards the path of least resistance. It doesn't mean that I don't challenge myself, but I am very aware and keenly in tuned with where I think I'm supposed to be going. So joy for me is really being able to say no to the things that are not filling my cup. and to feel like I have made the best decisions that I can make given the information that I have. And also just being able to sit and love myself.
Yeah.
So that's all. Like, there's so many things that go into it, but those are the things that I practice now that helps joy sustain versus this fleeting thing that sometimes it ends up being.
I love it. I know you said like you had to look into what does this even mean? Once you got that awareness, has that shifted over time? What that definition of joy is? Has that shifted over time for you?
I think so, because I think, just generally, I don't necessarily thought I had agency to have joy.
Wow.
And you convince yourself that you might be able to be happy for a moment, or there's these little flickers or whatever that come, but to create joy and to really be able to know what is joyful to me in the first place, most of it was created by the people around me, or me believing that someone else had to bring it to me.
Wow.
And so I think just learning what that meant and how to have agency to create it for myself has definitely helped me to redefine what joy means.
That kind of just gave me a little shiver. That distinction, though, right, of joy is something external that if I catch it, if I'm in the right space, versus no, I have the agency to create that for my life.
Yes.
That's a game changer.
Yes.
Ooh,
it is a game changer. It has been
good.
a game changer for me, for sure.
That's good. Oh, this is so good. This is so good. This has been really great talking to you. Where can people connect with you beyond the podcast? What do you have going on? Well, they already know y'all need to get the book. Okay, the link is in the chat. The link is in the show notes. Get the book. But how can people connect with you? And do you have anything going on that people should know about?
Yes, so they can connect with me on LinkedIn, of course, but also through my website, www.serenityscihealth.com.
Yes.
And things that I'm working on this year, for sure, it is creating e-learnings for the book.
Great.
So I'm a B2B, I'm business to business. And so what I'm trying to do is get my information out to consumers.
Yeah.
And so now I'm starting to create like small little e-learnings that people can just download for themselves in their little off time and the extra time that they have in their very busy lives.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to connect more with the consumer. So I have some e-learnings coming, as well as I currently have a blog that people can read as well. I contribute to Forbes, and so you can find me in a lot of different places, but my hope is to be able to connect with people at the consumer level a little bit more.
Yeah, so if they just kind of sign up for the email list, they can get the
right.
information about the e-learning.
That's right.
Okay, I love it. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for being here, adding your insight and wisdom. So I hope you all have enjoyed this episode. If you have, share it with a friend, share it with a colleague. We are streaming on all major podcast platforms. And of course, you can check us out on the Black Woman Leading YouTube page. If you want to connect with us, we are at Black Woman Leading, woman is singular, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. You can also visit our website at blackwomanleading.com to learn about our programs and events. If you'd like to connect with me personally, LinkedIn is the best place to find me. I'm Laura E. Knights, but I'm also active on Instagram. And then finally, if you'd like to learn about our services that we do in organizations to help them to develop their leaders and teams, check out our corporate site at knightsconsultinggroup.com. We would love to connect with you in any of these ways. And until next time, be well.